What if the war meant to end all wars had actually built the machine to end all future ones? On November 11, 1918, the guns of the Western Front fell silent, but the peace that followed was already fracturing before it was signed. In January 1919, delegates from 32 nations gathered in Paris to redraw the map of the world. Woodrow Wilson pushed for a League of Nations built on collective security. Clemenceau and Lloyd George wanted Germany contained, weakened, punished. The Treaty of Versailles that resulted stripped Germany of territory, military capacity, and colonies, burying it under crushing reparations, while the League itself was denied any binding enforcement power. Meanwhile, brilliant minds sat isolated. Hermann Oberth in Germany, Robert Goddard in America, Konstantin Tsiolkovsky in provincial Russia, each independently working out the mathematics of leaving Earth's atmosphere, each dismissed, underfunded, and unconnected. The tools for spaceflight already existed on paper. What didn't exist was a reason or a mechanism for the world's engineers to work as one. On the final day of the charter debate, one vote remained: whether the League would have real teeth. Wilson believed he had the numbers. He was right, by one vote, cast not by a president or a general, but by a Portuguese delegate swayed overnight by a British compromise on colonial administration. The binding enforcement clause passed, and with it, a mechanism no one had fully reckoned with. The League gained the legal authority to conscript, fund, and direct joint scientific programs across member states in the name of collective security. Welcome to the Divergence Files. Within 18 months, the newly empowered body, soon nicknamed the Concordat, moved to prevent the punitive isolation of German science, arguing that a starved, resentful Germany was a greater long-term threat than a Germany kept busy and watched. Oberth was not exiled to obscurity. He was reassigned, under Concordat oversight, to a joint engineering commission headquartered in Geneva. Goddard was invited to consult. Tsiolkovsky's papers were translated and circulated for the first time outside Russia. None of them yet knew they were founding a space program. They only knew, for the first time, that someone was finally listening and paying. It began, as these things always do, with paperwork. By 1922, the Concordat's Joint Propulsion Commission had a budget, a mandate, and a building in Geneva, and for the first time, Oberth, Goddard's correspondence, and Tsiolkovsky's equations occupied the same room. Liquid fuel combustion research, which in our timeline crawled forward through the isolated efforts of individual tinkerers until Goddard's first flight in 1926, now moved on parallel, coordinated tracks. Germany's suppressed industrial capacity, redirected under Concordat licensing rather than dismantled outright, gave the Commission access to precision metallurgy the others lacked. By 1925, a coordinated test stand program was launching sounding rockets past 10 kilometers, 5 years ahead of any single nation's real-world pace. Politically, the shift was just as sharp. With Germany integrated rather than humiliated, the resentment that fed real-world fascism's rise found less oxygen. Reparations were restructured into joint infrastructure credits. No single nation could yet see it, but the raw material, theoretical, industrial, and political, for a genuine space effort had assembled a full generation early, and it was still accelerating. By the 1930s, the Concordat's Quiet Rocketry Commission had become something no one in 1919 had planned for: a standing global technical authority with its own budget line, immune to the domestic politics of any single member state. Without a starved, humiliated Germany to radicalize, the conditions that produced real-world fascism's rise never fully cohered. Nationalist movements existed, but lacked the specific grievance engine of Versailles-style punishment. Resources that our timeline poured into rearmament instead flowed into orbital ambition. The V-2's real-world debut as a terror weapon in 1944 never happened. Its Concordat-era equivalent, developed a decade earlier under joint civilian oversight, was an orbital-capable research vehicle by 1936. Guidance systems, metallurgy, and life support research, each independently slower in our timeline, advanced in parallel under shared funding. Culturally, the Ascent, as the public called it, became a unifying global project the way the moon race was for America alone, except spread across dozens of nations who saw themselves as co-owners. By 1940, an uncrewed capsule had already completed a lunar flyby, returning photographs that reshaped public imagination a generation before Apollo 8 ever would. On March 3, 1949, 20 years before Neil Armstrong's boot ever touched real-world lunar dust, a three-person Concordat crew, drawn from American, German, and Soviet bloc engineering corps flying under a single Ascent Program flag, landed in the Sea of Tranquility. There was no flag-planting rivalry, because there was no rival. The mission belonged to the Concordat as a whole, broadcast jointly from Geneva, Houston, and Baikonur. The following decades diverged sharply from our own Cold War trajectory. With no separate national space races to duplicate effort, resources consolidated into permanent orbital infrastructure. A crewed research station by 1955, sustained lunar mining operations by the late 1960s, and, critically, orbital solar collection feeding power back to Earth by 1978, decades before any real-world equivalent left the drawing board. Geopolitics reorganized around orbital access rather than nuclear deterrence. The Concordat itself evolved from a technical commission into something closer to a genuine global authority, governing not through conquest, but through control of the infrastructure everyone now depended on. Today, in this divergent 2026, a teenager can watch a live feed from a permanent lunar research base the way we might check a weather app. Routine, unremarkable, decades-old news. Orbital solar farms quietly supply a meaningful share of the world's power grid. There is no SpaceX, no NASA versus Roscosmos rivalry, no billionaire space race, because there was never a fractured system for private ambition to route around. The Concordat's successor body still coordinates nearly all orbital activity as shared infrastructure. Compare that to our real world, where the moon remains 6 decades after Apollo, a place humans last stood in 1972, and where returning is once again treated as a bold new frontier rather than old business. The difference was never the technology. It was one vote, in one room, in Paris, in 1919, about who technology would ultimately answer to. That's the file for this week. If a single procedural vote can move the moon a generation closer, imagine what else is sitting one decision away. Subscribe. Drop your own divergence theory in the comments. Like this if history surprised you. And share it with someone who still thinks the moon landing happened right on schedule. This has been the Divergence Files. What single vote in your own timeline do you think is hiding a fracture point like this one?